Hello, and welcome to the Pandemic People podcast. My name is David Roman, and I'm your host. Today is Saturday, May 23rd, 2020. Before we jump into our main topic, I just wanted to quickly remind you of the initiative that we've been highlighting in the last week, Art Feeding Families, based here in Canada. This is an initiative that's using art to raise money for various charities. Please check out their Facebook page. The link will be in the description. It'll be in the podcast show notes. They're doing really great work, and it's a really great initiative to be a part of, so I highly recommend you go check out their stuff. All right, so for today's show, we're going to be heading down to the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation is the largest First Nation in the United States. In total, its size is around 17 million acres, occupying areas of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. There are more than 300,000 enrolled tribal members, making it the second largest tribe in the United States. One of the unfortunate realities of the pandemic is that minority communities in the United States have been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention website suggests that health differences between racial and ethnic groups are often due to economic and social conditions that are more common among some racial and ethnic minorities than whites. In public health emergencies, these conditions can also isolate people from the resources they need to prepare for and respond to outbreaks. The Navajo Nation is no exception to this reality. Currently, the Navajo Nation as a community has the highest per capita rate of coronavirus infections in the United States, recently surpassing New York. My next guest is a journalist for the Navajo Times and a self-described Skoden matriarch and Indigenous feminist. We are very fortunate to be heading down to the Navajo Nation to get some first-hand accounts of pandemic life as an Indigenous journalist. So let's pack those virtual bags, grab those masks, and head on down to the Navajo Nation. Hi, and welcome back to the Pandemic People podcast. I am sitting here with a journalist from the Navajo Times. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's Pauly Denetclaw, Halton Ishlando, Kiani Bashtin, Bit Ani Dashichedo, Shin Dashinelli, Kinhojone De Nasha. Hi everyone. My name is Pauly Denetclaw. I am Meadow People, born for Towering House People. I am from a small community in New Mexico called Manuelito, and it's on the border of Arizona and New Mexico. And I'm a reporter with the Navajo Times. Currently, though, I'm living in Gallup, New Mexico, which is about 20 minutes from where I'm originally from. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's within the Navajo Nation then, or is that, okay, awesome. And yeah, maybe tell me a little bit about your journey towards working for the Navajo Times. Like what drew you to journalism, and what made you go that direction?
So this is a really, I often think about what really inspired me to do journalism, and I feel like it was just a mixture of things. I grew up in a household where my father and my mother constantly had magazines, newspapers. I had a favorite magazine article when I was 10, and it was from Time magazine. And I was constantly consuming Time magazine. And then I started watching a show called Gilmore Girls. Oh, nice. And one of the characters on there, her name is Rory Gilmore, and she became a journalist. And I feel like that's what first implanted the idea of becoming a journalist, and that was actually a career opportunity. And in that show, they also had some famous reporters come in and be on the show. So I thought that was really amazing. And they were all women too. So that was really awesome. And I also grew up in a really racist border town, and our newspaper was super problematic.
Yes.
And really wrote just disparaging articles about Indigenous people, was very hateful in the rhetoric that they used. And so I as I got older and went into college, I went into college to study biology, actually.
Oh, wow.
And I did a year of that before realizing that it wasn't for me. And I went into journalism after that. And I told my parents, I was I'm going into journalism. I feel like it's something that I can do, which my parents were totally supportive of, because they had been pushing me my entire life to do writing. I've been writing since I was 8. That's the earliest chapter book that I have that I wrote in pen, like in pencil. And I actually still have it. It's like really, I will say this, it's actually pretty good.
That's awesome.
And I used Pooh Bear characters to talk about when I got glasses for the first time. And it was like my experience of getting glasses, but using other characters. So it was really awesome. But yeah, so after my first year at UNM, University of New Mexico, I that summer I was like, I'm changing my major. And my mom knew a reporter really well from the Navajo Times, actually. And she was like, my mom was like, hey, can she like shadow you for the day? Is that something that she can do? Because she wants to go into journalism, but I want her to like be sure that this is something she wants to do. So her name's Noelle Smith. She works at the Daily Times now in Farmington, which is about 2 hours from where we live. And so she asked the CEO and publisher if I could shadow her for like the week. And he was like, well, we don't really do that, but she can apply for an internship. So I applied for an internship. I got it. And I spent the summer reporting. I had no reporting experience. I was just like a good writer. And it was the best. Awesome. I had so much fun that summer. And then ever since then, I've been doing journalism. I was actually originally an audio reporter.
Oh, okay.
So I did radio for the majority of my career, actually, for the first 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did radio. I was part of a nonprofit media organization called Generation Justice. And we did a 1-hour radio show with youth producers every week.
Oh, really cool.
Yeah.
I'm imagining that your background in audio has probably been super handy in terms of journalism too, right? So understanding the tech you need for different things.
Yeah, it has been super helpful. The only problem is my quotes and my stories are like really long. I'm just like, but they make it sound so much better. Like I could paraphrase it, but I couldn't say it as good.
Well, and that was one thing I really appreciated about some of the journalism I see in the Navajo Times is I found the stories a little more raw, I guess, a little more real. I didn't, sometimes you kind of read these stories that are put in these larger newspapers and again, they're trying to fill space. There's a certain vernacular that's just kind of seems, it's the same old, right? So I found it refreshing when I was checking out the Navajo Times. I wanted to see from your paper's perspective just what was going on down there, because all I'd really heard was, offhand stuff from other media outlets. So yeah, that was super great. So I guess, obviously we're going through a pandemic right now. That's no secret. That's what this podcast is called. What are you finding in terms of doing your journalism now? Are there things that are different now about how you're doing it? Or I'm not sure if you're isolating right now, or if you're still kind of out there in the field working, or maybe tell me a bit about that.
Okay. So actually right now I am self-isolating, because, one of my family members tested positive for COVID.
Oh gosh. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So I live with all first responders.
Oh.
So yeah. So we're all like, my sister, my nephew, and his girlfriend, like they're all first responders.
Wow.
And
wow.
I'm a reporter. So
you're all out there. Well, you're out there serving everybody right now, right? So doing the dangerous stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, so I'm self-isolating right now, pending my results.
Okay.
But prior to this, I was going out. So me and one of my coworkers, who is also my best friend, her name's Rayvon Yazi. We go out, we pick a different community every Friday, and we just go out and we find stories. And so that's what we were doing prior to this. And so last Friday, we actually went to Monument Valley, Utah, which is part of Utah Navajo. And they don't often get a lot of like coverage.
Right.
And so it was really amazing for us to go out there and to talk with graduates and to talk with their title holder, Miss Utah Navajo. and to really get a different perspective about what's happening out there. And so we were like on the grounds in Monument Valley, Utah, Old Jato, and it was really, really amazing to be out there. The week before that, we went to, so our res is broken up into different agencies.
Okay.
So there's like Eastern Agency, Northern Agency, Western, Chinle, Fort Defiance. I think I'm missing one. Northern Agency.
And that's all split up between the different states, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So it's like we're split up by states, and then we're all split up by agencies within
wow.
and then by county.
Okay. Yeah. Right. There's counties too.
Yeah. So it's just a lot. But we went out to Deep Eastern, which is New Mexico Navajo. That also doesn't get a lot of coverage. Mm-hmm. And we found 2 bus drivers who were delivering meals, and they had volunteered to take over somebody else's route because that person had actually gotten sick. They had tested positive for COVID. And so a lot of the bus drivers, I didn't even know this, a lot of bus drivers in Eastern Agency have been getting COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so they were just like trying to fill in where they could and trying to make sure that, students are able to get food, especially because we do live in high poverty areas.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's some of the reporting that we've been doing. But most of the time I try to do phone interviews outside of that. But it's really difficult to get those really like raw stories and those really emotional stories, and to really connect with people, and also to like offer them support. And yeah, so it was really challenging at the beginning, trying to find stories. I was like at my wit's end trying to find stories to do that I could do from my home.
Right.
And then also producing the work that I want to produce and being out there. And so, yeah, I'm going to really miss it for the next 2 weeks, but hopefully.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Well, and I'm not sure what it's like, I guess, for you there. I know over here we're being very proactive now in terms of our testing, right? Like it seems like when we identify somebody, we're going like 10 people deep to see, like you had contact with this person, that person, we're just testing like crazy. So has that kind of been the situation there, or how is that factoring into all this as well?
So right now where I live, there's only one testing site. Okay. That's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And that serves this entire area, which is hundreds of miles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I had to wait 2 hours to get tested both times. So I've gotten tested twice now.
Twice already, okay.
Yeah, so the first time it was negative, and I got tested again after one of my family members tested positive. So I got tested again yesterday. But yeah, both times it's been like up to 2 hours waiting in line to get tested. It's drive up, so.
Oh, good. I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's drive up, but it takes about 2 hours. And yeah, I feel like that's the only place that's open right now that's offering like drive up testing where you don't actually have to like go into the hospital.
Right.
And I think the other hospitals in my area, I'm not sure if they will test you if you're asymptomatic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of been one of the biggest challenges, right? Is the amount of people who are asymptomatic. There seems to be so many different studies out there talking about, it's a very large number, maybe it's a small number. It's like all over the place, right? And I think that's always what gives me the most anxiety here too. Is our numbers are low in my community right now. Like we have like literally one active case in a city of like 150,000 people roughly, which is pretty remarkable right now. But I'm still like worried because I'm like, what about that person out there who's asymptomatic and you never know, and they might be spreading it right now as we speak. You just don't know. But anyway, going back to you're talking a little bit with the journalism stuff. I guess I'm curious because I kind of watch American media and Canadian media. I don't know if you know much about like Canada, but we're really obsessed with American media for some reason. we're always watching American news. We're following American politics. We're doing. I don't know why we're so obsessed with that, but. I just feel like one thing I see is just such a different approach to journalism right now in the two countries, and I think it's because we're just kind of boring in some ways. To be honest, we're very plain Jane. You know, our prime minister's out there and by himself. There's nobody around him. There's no big show, right? And journalists are very far apart. They're calling in. I guess so. I'm thinking about like what you do, and you're talking about like phoning people and getting out there and getting in the field. Are there a lot of safety protocols that have kind of changed then in journalism in terms of what you have to do to go collect that story? Has that changed, or has it been pretty much the same?
So me, I'm extra cautious. I don't know about other people in my newsroom, but I am super cautious. So I don't get within like 6 feet of people. I'm super far away from people. I wear 2 masks. So I wear an N95 mask and then I wear a cloth mask over it. And so if I had the ability to also get the glasses, like the clear see-through glasses, I would also be wearing those. But we just don't have them in my area right now. But yeah, those are the safety precautions that I'm taking. And if I have to, I do bring gloves with me.
Right.
But oftentimes I'm just like dousing myself in my hand sanitizer. And so those are pretty much the safety precautions that I'm taking right now. Me and also the photojournalist that I work with, Riddiman. So we like stay as far away from people as we can comfortably can. Actually, when we went to Monument Valley, she wanted a picture with one of the graduates with their mask off. And in order to get that, she had to use her super long lens. And we were like 20 feet away from her.
Right.
And so she was like, okay. And so those are the like safety precautions that we've been taking right now. And just making sure that we're giving people enough space. Obviously we don't shake hands, which is something I'm actually really bad at. The first time that we went out into the field, I was like, hi, I'm Pauly.
Right. It's just a natural reaction.
It's so natural. And Riddiman was like, Pauly, no. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And we were in the hospital.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. So it's been really difficult, that part of it. And also being an Indigenous person, like greeting people like with handshakes or with hugs.
Yeah.
Is just normal. And so it's been really difficult to like remember that for me. And then I actually did hug a woman when I went out to Rima, and I felt really bad about that. And I was like, oh my God. She like went to hug me and I was like, oh, hi. And I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, so that was like one instance where I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad right now. 'Cause I should have remembered. But yeah, those are
hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. It's really hard. Yeah. So those are just some of the things that I've been doing now, and just some of the mistakes that I've made that I don't anymore. So thankfully, yeah.
I can relate, like culturally speaking, Chileans, we're very touchy-feely people. We're always hugging and kissing and all these things. And it's just so strange to not do that to other people, like to not just be warm, Yeah. And I have my family at home, thankfully. I have kids and my wife, so at least I have that human connection that way. But man, if I didn't have that, I think I'd be going crazy right now. So, yeah. No, that's super interesting stuff. So I guess kind of veering off from the journalism part of it then too, I wanted to talk a little bit about, the Navajo Nation community itself. I was doing a little bit of research about, geographically where you're located and population wise. And I guess there was a news story I found that was talking about how per capita, the Navajo Nation now has the highest coronavirus positive cases, even higher than New York per capita, which I was actually really shocked. Like I knew you were having a disproportionate impact there. What do you think is causing this? Like, what do you think this kind of phenomena is related to? I mean, obviously, there's some obvious things with injustices, obviously, but I'm just curious about your perspective.
I guess my perspective on this whole situation is that one, people are not following health orders. That's just like period. Disparities exist within our healthcare system, poverty, and all of those issues, and, not having running water, or electricity. So those are all things that are a part of our community. But period, people are not following protocol. I still see families going to the store, like whole families, like 5 kids, 2 parents, going to the store.
Right.
Yeah. And, I see people hanging out. It's very frustrating for me. Somebody actually sent me a video of them having a party at their house.
Oh gosh.
And so there was like at least, I don't know, 10, 15 people at this like party or whatever. And so things like that are just continuing to happen.
Right.
And people are not following protocols. They're not taking this seriously. And I even saw a firefighter at our local Home Depot go into the store without a mask. So it's not even, it's not just the general public, it's everyone. No one's following protocols here. It's difficult to maintain social distancing when people don't respect social distancing. And so a lot of the anxiety that I get when I go to the store is, which thankfully the Walmart pickup is now an option. Before it'd be like 5 days until you get the groceries. It was awful. But now the times available have opened up a lot more. So it's more of an option for me now. But yeah, it gave me so much anxiety because, again, I live in a household full of first responders. So I just have to be extra cautious.
Totally. Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want to transmit anything to people. I don't want to brush up against, and I'm also out in the community too. And so I'm just like, folks, please stay away from me. Like, please maintain 6 foot distance from me. But yeah, I still see grandparents out there. Like, it's incredible the amount of people that I still see at the store. And I watched an entire family go in, buy a trampoline, and come out.
Oh gosh.
So
wow.
Because sometimes me and my coworker will just go into the parking lot and just like people watch and just see what people are doing. And yeah, we watched this whole family, 5 of them, get out of the car, go to the store, come out with one item, a trampoline. That was it.
Yeah.
And we see, I've seen multiple families do things like that, where they all go in and they'll come out with maybe like a bag of groceries, if that.
Right.
And it's just really frustrating for me, having to see all of this. And then also the Walmart not putting in, protocols to be like, no kids under, 15 or something.
Right.
Or, because there are other stores, our Safeway, the Bashes, which are some of the other local stores here, who will tell people like, no, you can't go in. No kids are allowed in. And there can only be 1 person per vehicle, and they'll check.
Yeah, that's actually, we've had a very similar scenario here with, kind of a disproportionate response from different stores, right? Like I know Costco is talking about mandatory mask wearing in their stores, and I mean, it's crazy busy there. The lineups are absurd, but so I'm not sure how safe the lineup itself is, but they're letting, they're limiting the amount of people who come in and that. But then, yeah, Walmart's kind of the opposite, where it just seems to be a little, like, there's some concerns, but it's, for the most part, it's just, hey, let's just go browse and shop and check things out. And there's no pandemic going on, it's, but I feel like people here, like, again, our scenario is quite different in terms of my city. We've gotten very lucky with having very few cases, and right now literally having 1 that we know about. So I think people kind of have this Superman complex now, where we're invincible. We can just go do what we want. But down there, I mean, you would think that with the information of how many positive cases there are, that people would want to protect themselves a little more, or protect others. So, do you think? I think about my parents here, and when I'm thinking about this, I'm finding them having a really hard time shifting their behaviors, right? Like they're just been doing it for so long. It's just who they are. And to tell them, oh, you can only go 1 at a time to the store. They never go anywhere separate, right? They're always going together. I can't convince them, like, go by yourself, you know? Is it that, like, are people just too comfortable with the way they've been, and, or are they not informed enough? Like, what do you think kind of causes that, the complacency, I guess?
I think that they're just not taking it seriously. Like, I mean, our numbers are really, really high. You're saying that, you know, you live in a place where there's like 150,000 people?
Roughly around that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And there's one case. We have the same population, and we have almost 4,500 cases.
Right.
And in my area in particular, like, I live in Gallup, which is in McKinley County, and we have the highest, like, we're a rural area.
Okay.
And we have the highest number of cases in the state of New Mexico.
Wow.
And Albuquerque, New Mexico is our biggest city in the entire state, where half of our population lives. And we in McKinley County, which is a very rural county, our biggest town here is where I live right now, Gallup, New Mexico, 24,000 people. And we have, I think it was like, last I checked, it was nearing 500 cases.
Wow. Okay. So that's really high per capita. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very high per capita. And a lot of the people, like, are getting it from being in town. Like, and so we've had places here, the Starbucks, McDonald's, Burger King, Walmart, one of our TNRs, have all closed down because one of their employees tested positive.
Oh, shoot.
And so they had to disinfect the whole area. And so, like, those are happening more often now. And even when we had this, even when we had the state police, I don't know if you know this, we were on lockdown here in Gallup for, I think it was over a week.
Was that like shelter in place kind of lockdown, or?
No, like, police were making sure that nobody was getting off the freeway.
Wow.
National Guard was called in. They stopped everybody and asked you where you were going. If you said you lived here, they were like, okay, well, we need proof. Where's your proof that you live here? And
like,
so
like
they
a
were
pass system all over again. Hey, like, yeah.
It was crazy. And I moved in with my sister, and my address on my driver's license doesn't match where I live now. Because I got my driver's license, like, 2 years ago or something. And I just moved down the road. So I lived in county land with my parents, and I literally moved like maybe 3 miles to my sister's house. And okay. So I was like,
why change that? Yeah.
Like, I was like, my driver's license is good for like another, 3 years. Actually, no, I think I paid.
Well, and what about people who don't even have ID, right? Like, I mean, there's lots of those people in my community. It's like, so how do they prove where they live?
Exactly. And it's just like, so I kept getting stopped, and I actually had to start using my essential papers. So I have essential papers that basically say, like, I'm doing my job, I can go through.
Right.
Because the first time the officer was like, I'll let you through this time, but you need to have some kind of proof that you live where you live. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to go through a second checkpoint that day, actually. And that time I was like, I'm using my essential papers, sir. Here we go. And so that's how I was getting around my own city, like where I live. And I know that a lot of people have that issue too. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who live in my area, because we have the real IDs. So basically we have to go through extra steps to prove that, like, we're American citizens and to prove where we live. And so it's actually pretty difficult for people to get real IDs. Yeah,
for sure. Right. I'm not sure how you're, I'm more familiar with Canadian Indigenous politics than I am American, but like, I know here we have treaty cards, right? And usually that can be substituted for ID quite often in a lot of scenarios. Do you have anything like that there, or is it a little different there?
we're supposed to have the ability to get tribal IDs,
Mm-hmm.
but in my community, what I've been told for the last like 2 or 3 years now is that the machine is broken, so they're not giving out tribal IDs.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. Like I come in here like at least once a year asking, but okay.
And I still haven't replaced it, hey? No.
Exactly. I was like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, there's a girl that I follow on Twitter who recently moved back, and she got a tribal ID though. So I'm like, oh, they fixed the machine.
Oh, wow. Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Now that you don't actually want to go into any buildings, it's available for you. Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, here, come get your tribal IDs now.
Yeah. That's
But
interesting.
so we just have our paper ones, our CIB certificate of Indian blood.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I guess that'd be similar to what, like, I mean, here they obviously have status. You're either status or non-status. And if you're non-status, you don't get any of the treaty rights specifically, which is and a whole nother story here. I mean, there's a lot of history of people advocating for different things, but, so I guess then kind of thinking about the broken machine, I'm thinking about kind of the funding coming into the Navajo Nation. Like I was reading today about, I think it's called the CARES Act in the States, where they, I didn't realize they had allocated so much money to helping fight coronavirus. I mean, all you hear on the news about America is, people drinking bleach and things like that. They don't ever tell us about any of the things that are actually happening, because that's all we get up here. But so anyway, I was reading that, and it seemed like there was, I think, 600 million that was moving towards the Navajo Nation. So I guess I'm assuming you have a tribal council of some sort, or a government that is going to be getting that money and then kind of using that for, I guess I'm not sure. Yeah, like you have one testing center, you said, in such a small place. So I'm assuming some of that money could improve that. But what have you heard much about that?
Yeah, so actually our hospital services are funded by the federal government.
Oh, okay.
And so that the 600 million that we get actually doesn't go into like funding Indian health services because they receive direct federal funding from the federal government. So the $600 million now, they're deciding how to allocate it and how to spend it right now. And so overall, though, the government did give $8 billion to Native nations all across the United States. We have over 500 recognized tribes. And so that $8 billion gets separated to all the other tribes. And the Navajo Nation got 600 million of it, like you said. And so, yeah, we have a council of 24 council members, and we have a president and vice president and his cabinet, who run about, I think it's 80% of the tribe. Yeah, and so our council is working now on how to spend that money, because it just got put into our account. I think it was last week.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
so it got direct deposited to us.
Direct deposited. The Trump check. You had a signature from Trump on it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it's a significant amount of money. I'm not sure. I guess it really depends if there might be some stipulation on how that can be spent or something. I'm assuming, but what kind of impact? I guess what kind of things do you think are needed in terms of kind of alleviating some of the issues? You mentioned running water is a big one. I know that's something here in Canada too. There's some First Nations here that don't have running water, and it's been a huge issue. We suddenly have billions of dollars to help Canadians when there was a virus, but we didn't have any money before to give people water somehow. So, yeah, I guess I'm curious. Like, do you think that funding, like, where do you think it's going to go? What do you think it's going to do for your communities?
I think that it's probably going to be funneled into our government to fund the government, to make sure that it continues going, that people, keep getting paid. Right. They're probably going to buy like supplies, PPE, water, sort of those like things to give out to community members. But other than that, I I don't think it's enough money to provide any significant amount of infrastructure in terms of, running water, roads. There's a lot of dirt roads where on my reservation, it costs about $1 million to pave 1 mile of road.
Wow.
Yeah. So and also along the lines of electricity as well, to put up, I think one post is like over $1,000.
Jeez.
And so I really doubt that there's just the money in there to be able to really provide any significant amounts of infrastructure. Okay. I really think this is just emergency funding, just to make sure that people, have food and water and that they have masks. Okay. And we're such a large tribe too. We have like 150,000 people who live on our res. So.
Yeah, and I mean, it's spread out on quite an area too, right? So, from what I saw, so that's it's unfortunate. Like I know that's kind of a big political issue here all the time with our First Nations communities. Is just what kind of funding do they need and for what purpose? And then there's there's a lot of talk in our country about people wanting like a lot of oversight and not really allowing First Nations to have autonomy over the funding they're receiving and all these things, and it's just a mess sometimes. And I guess it's just unfortunate to hear that the situation down there is just sounds very similar in terms of like, oh, we don't have electricity here, we don't have running water there. I mean, the roads here are just atrocious on some of the First Nations I've worked on. I used to do social work on a lot of reserves here, and I mean, if you know anything about our winters here and how awful they are, it was really difficult to enter those communities and to have access some days. Plowing out the big grid road is a lot of money and it's a lot of work. So, so I definitely relate to a lot of what you're saying in terms of the communities I've worked in here. So I guess maybe let's move away a little bit from the political stuff here. I want to talk a little bit about just, I guess, your daily life. I've been asking kind of all my guests a little bit about, everybody's kind of doing weird things now in awkward situations and that kind of thing. And I'm just curious, like, I know you're in isolation right now, but are there things that you find that have changed quite a bit for you that you were kind of not expecting, or are there certain things that you find lacking now that you're, that we're in the middle of this pandemic, things you can't seem to access or can't? Yeah, I'm curious to hear about your daily life down there.
I think the biggest thing for me is that I can't find as many masks as I need. So my really nice N95 mask that I had for a while, it snapped.
Oh no.
The strap on it snapped. And so I was like, great. And I felt really safe in that one. But then I got another N95 mask. And that one is like wearing out now. And so it's like, especially because I was so out in the community, like not having that added layer of protection was really scary for me. And so like having just the cloth mask on, really scares me. And so like, and then also my Walmart ran out of cotton fabric.
Oh gosh.
So we have like no cotton fabric. We couldn't find elastics for like our masks and stuff. Like if we wanted to make them at home, which was a huge issue. It's actually still an issue. I had to order it online. It took like 3 weeks to get here.
Yeah.
And so ordering online has been an issue too. Finally, I was able to get some hand sanitizer. I haven't been able to find hand sanitizer anywhere in my community.
Right.
And the only ones that I had were, I'm not sure if you know what Bath and Body Works is.
Yes, we have them here. Yeah.
Okay. So they have those like tiny little ones that they sell, those hand sanitizers. I just so happened to buy like 7 of them in January, and I've been using only those. And I could not find any hand sanitizer. It was awful.
So you had some intuition suddenly that you needed hand sanitizer in the future, hey? And then just stocked up.
Just randomly had them. And so I actually I'm running out of the last bit of my Bath and Body Works hand sanitizer.
Oh, no.
But I actually found this on, I feel really bad. I try not to buy from smaller communities when I'm out, but I had to. I bought this one.
Okay.
So this is my hand sanitizer spray that I found in Monument Valley, Utah.
Oh, nice. Here we've had a lot of our distilleries have repurposed themselves to doing hand sanitizers. I don't know if you've had any of that happening there, but that seems to be the only way we get hand sanitizer now is from distilleries.
Yeah, we don't have any distilleries. We don't have any breweries in my area. Yeah, it was just actually really surprising. So we don't have any breweries, any distilleries here. They do in Albuquerque, which is about 2 hours away.
Okay.
And I know that's how people have been getting hand sanitizer there, and they've been producing it. And that's actually when I went out to Riddiman, Navajo, which is it's a satellite community. So basically, here's the Navajo Nation, and here's Riddiman.
Okay.
So it's like not connected.
Separated, also like an island of sorts, I guess.
Exactly. So it's like an island of Navajo land, and it's called Riddiman, Navajo, and that's how they got hand sanitizer. So they reached out to a distillery. Actually, no, they reached out to a brewery in Albuquerque, and they sent over a shipment to their community. So,
were you able to get toilet paper down there? Is that is that something that exists? I know some communities here don't have it. So.
Yeah, it was really difficult for a while to get toilet paper. I mean, people were buying it out like crazy, and it was wild. But the restaurants here in my community actually started selling toilet paper and paper towels. So they really came through, and that's also how they're making like extra money, especially because their revenue has went so down. Just from this whole pandemic. And so Glenn's Bakery, which is our local bakery, they really came through. They were selling everything. They were like selling meat, potatoes, like anything they had on their menu. They were like, oh, you need groceries? We also have groceries here for you.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was really amazing. And that's actually where we got our paper towels and our toilet paper from. So
that's so interesting. You got it at a restaurant. Yeah, that's the first I've heard of that. I guess is there anything else that you kind of feel like has really drastically changed about even just the way? I guess like I don't know how you have people living with you, I guess, which is great. Have you been able to kind of interact with family at all? Have you been finding that a challenge or kind of helping each other out?
Yeah, it's been really hard for me because I can't see my mom. And like I said, like she lives just down the road from us. And so seeing her has been like really hard because like I have to just wave at her from like the window. It was like really, really hard at the beginning. Like I was crying because I couldn't see my mom. I couldn't be with her, and I was so worried about her. And it was just really, really, really hard for me at the beginning. But as time went on and my mom was like, I'm okay, like everything's fine. And just getting used to like the new normal, it got easier. And so, I call and I text my mom like every day, and I make sure that she has all the things that she needs. I try to keep her from going to the store, but just parents also like to get out again.
I know. Yeah. I think my father said something to me like, well, when your time's up, he said. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you can do things to prevent that from happening right now. I mean, it's I'd like you around for a while longer.
Yeah. So that's been really hard. Trying to, at the beginning, my mom was very like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to go out. But as things started getting worse and worse and worse, that's when she was like, okay, like I'm not going to go out anymore. So she doesn't anymore, thankfully. But I was delivering groceries to her. When I was delivering groceries to her. But now that I'm on isolation, she has to go do it now. And I wouldn't want to,
No.
Yeah, I'm just like so scared. But yeah, so those are, yeah, it was just really hard. Oh my God, I was like constantly crying, being like, my mom.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm still kind of like, we haven't, I guess here, we've been, it's almost been 3 months of, of us, social isolating. And yeah, like that's like the hardest part for me is just the family piece is missing, and I have a small daughter who's 16 months now roughly. And yeah, like she just does, I mean, she gets the FaceTime, I suppose, but it's just that interaction with grandparents is just non-existent. But either than that, then it's really sad to, wonder how long that's going to have to happen. Right. So,
Yeah.
and I guess, so then carrying from that, I guess thinking about where we're going here, one of the last few things I wanted to ask you about was, where do you think things are going to go from here then in terms of, I mean, you hear a lot of people talking about, this big, I guess, philosophical change in people, or there's some big shifts, cultural shifts. Other people are a lot more skeptical and think this is just, Jeff Bezos is just trying to take over the world now, and that's the way it is. He's, people are getting richer anyway. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's your view of where, especially with, you live in the States, and we're all watching, very concerned, to be honest, outside of your country, about how things are going there with the virus. And where do you think things are going to go? Do you think we're going to come out of this stronger? Is there going to be a big shift? I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
This is such a great question. I love this question. So I was actually recently part of a Women of Color cohort where we thought about this same question. Like, what do we want as we move into the future, and what do we want to create with this future? And so I definitely see huge social changes happening, like through this like catalyst of this pandemic. And I really, truly believe that things will get better. I think that social services will get stronger from this. I believe that it will move us more towards, making sure that people like Jeff Bezos don't have billions and billions of dollars while the rest of us can't even get like masks,
They say he's on the way to $1 trillion with the way things are going right now. So by a certain year, anyway, it's crazy news.
Exactly. Like, nobody should have that amount of money. Like, nobody needs that much capital. Nobody needs that. And so I feel like it's really opening up people's minds to how disgusting the disparities are between like the very, very rich in our country and the very, very poor in our country. And it's just sickening to me how my community doesn't even have like running water and electricity, broadband access, roads, basic infrastructure. Yet Jeff Bezos is on his way to $1 trillion. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I really do think that things are going to get better from here. I think that people are opening their eyes, opening their minds, thinking critically about the world around them, and understanding that the reason why things are so bad here in the United States is because of these huge disparities when it comes to poverty, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to infrastructure. Like, all of these holes that existed within the United States are being showcased for the entire world to see. That these are where the huge holes are within our country. And so I truly believe that things will get better from here. I am also, a socialist, so I see things moving more towards in that direction, which I think is a good thing. We need more social services to catch people who are falling through.
Totally.
And we need to be able to have roads in every community. We need broadband access in every community. We need to care about the people around us. And I think that this time has really allowed people to be like, oh yes, I do need to care about what I'm doing in this community. Like, if I'm not wearing my mask, how is that affecting other people? And I know that some people don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of us who do. And I think that those of us who care outnumber the people who don't.
Right, right.
And that's becoming very clear. They tried to have one of those rallies, those like alt-right rallies in Santa Fe, in my state. And there was like 14 cars.
Good. That's good to hear.
So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you are alone.
Yeah.
And you need to like move forward. You need to progress your thinking, because that's the direction that we're headed. And so I'm just really excited to see what comes after this, and just really, continuing to hope that our government sees what's like, truly understands what is happening and makes policy that reflects the change that is needed. Because things never needed to get this bad. Point blank period.
Yeah, I really love what you're saying about, I guess, the disparities that are existing and how they're getting revealed. It's the same thing in our country. I find that in Canada, it's just becoming so clear how dysfunctional our system is that, 1 month of not getting paid properly could collapse the entire country. And like how awful is that nobody has any ability to save or any ability to have capital or at least not enough people do. And here we've implemented something called CERB, which is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. And it was like a step towards universal basic income. It was not quite there. It was a little bit like we have a minority government right now, so that means that our government has to collaborate with other parties in the government in order to get a bill passed. To pass legislation, I should say. And so they had to kind of put some concession in there to make it more broadly accessible, right? And so we actually collect most people, not most, but I guess a good chunk of people are collecting $2,000 a month right now while they wait out the pandemic, right? There's a lot of businesses who are affected, a lot of employees, things like that. So I feel you on that. I feel like if people get used to the idea that you can have a benefit like that, and it can actually be distributed that easily and that quickly, and that our system really needs that kind of safety net. Otherwise, you have just too many people falling through, right? Especially as the world moves more and more away from employees and closer to automation and those kinds of things. So hopefully this is a catalyst for that. I'm with you on that. That's what I would like.
I truly hope so, especially again, the basic income, like, it's so ridiculous to me that we got like a $1,200 like payment or whatever through the CARES Act. And that's only for people who have had jobs within the law.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. And it doesn't also include undocumented folks who pay taxes, by the way. Like, I'm close to the border. I'm close to the Mexican border here. And we have a lot of undocumented immigrants here, and they pay taxes and they work here, and they also didn't get any funding from the government during this time. And so that's like really frustrating as well. And there are a lot of people who live in huge like cities, where it's like, $1,500 for a studio apartment. That $1,200 isn't even going to pay somebody's rent. So it's really frustrating, but it also shows that our government has the capacity to give that amount of money, and to ensure that folks can feed themselves, that people can have basic necessities that everybody has the right to. And so I'm really hoping that will show people like this is a good thing, and having basic income, having basic necessities is okay, and it's good for our economy. That's the other thing too. I saw this tweet where it was like, oh, you guys you don't have enough in your savings account for 3 months, to like all these like corporations, right? Who are like, oh, we need to open. And they're like, oh, well, you don't have like 3 months in savings. You should have savings. Why don't you have savings? Because that's the huge thing here in America is people being like, oh, well, you should have a savings account. And it's like, how can you have a savings account when we can't even pay our bills?
That's just it. Like, or have any quality of life. It's like, well, all my money just goes directly into savings now and bills, and I'm going to do nothing. It's just like, I don't know, like, the expectation is kind of ridiculous, right?
It's unrealistic. And, our federal, our federal income is $7.50.
Right.
And in my state, thankfully, they finally increased the minimum wage it was $7.50, and they finally increased it to $9.50.
Okay.
And so it's $9.50 an hour now, but they're going to go up to, I think it's $11.50.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. So minimum wage has gone up in my state, but that's only because we have a liberal governor.
Right. Yes, that's typically when it goes up. Yeah. We have very in Canada we have a lot of socialist tendencies, even though we're highly conservative in some ways. So those kinds of things, like having a decent minimum wage seems to. I mean, it's not amazing here either. Don't get me wrong, but it always seems to go up, and we do have we have Medicare here. We got all these things that were kind of entrenched aspects of socialism that people aren't willing to get rid of. So which is good. Cool. So I guess the last question I want to ask you a little bit about, I've been asking all my guests this, if you had a message for yourself or for everybody, a year from now or when this is all over, what do you think we need to take from this? What, besides, I mean, obviously social change is a big thing. We need to hold on to that. But what would you tell yourself? What would you tell us?
Let's see. If I were to tell myself something, this is to myself from a year from now, but it's to not forget the lessons that I learned during this time, the deep thinking about myself, who I am, what I want for my future, and what I see for my career, and making sure that I don't lose sight of that as I move forward and past like this period of time. Because I've been really introspective during this time, and it's also thanks to the Women of Color cohort that I was a part of. And so just thinking very deeply about what I want, what kind of future I want to create. So I hope that a year from now, I haven't lost sight of those insights that I've created during this time. And just for my community and for the world at large, really care about people around you. Really care about your impact on the world, really care to want things to be better for not just yourself, but for your entire community. Especially in America, we're very individualistic. And that's just kind of how our society is and our culture. And so I would hope that people take from this, like caring about their neighbors and caring about their communities. And I see that now, and I just hope that that continues, and that people want to be of service to their communities to make this world a better place.
I'm with you on that. I'm trying to remember that for myself too. Just take these emotions that we have now and keep them going, because I think it's so important to keep everything in perspective from here on. Awesome. Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is I really wish your family well and yourself. I'm hoping that you're going to be back out there and helping people and safe here in the near future. I'm sure my listeners would love to hear in the future if how things turned out and how things are going again. So I'll definitely check in with you at some other point in time and see how you're doing. But yeah, again, thank you for coming on the show. It's really great to have somebody from your area of the world to tell us. Just, I learned a lot about what's going on down there and some of the commonalities we have and some of the unique perspectives that you bring. So I appreciate that very much. Any last things you want to say? Anything you want to get off your chest before we go?
Follow me on Twitter.
Yes.
At Pdineclah. That's the traditional spelling of my last name.
Okay.
And also, I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
At The Other Native. It's on YouTube. I'm a vlogger as well.
Okay.
So I create vlogs for YouTube. So if you want to check those out, I've been vlogging my entire quarantine experience. So if you want to, see a little piece of my world here in the Southwest, that's definitely a place to do that. And also, I am a reporter with the Navajo Times. So if you want to subscribe,
Yes.
or get the newspaper there and support your favorite journalist, way to do it. And so that's www.navajotimes.com. And I think that's it. And thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. It was very wonderful to talk about some of the things that I've been noticing, and also just being able to just be like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And having the space to do it. And also, because you're a social worker, you understand the social dynamics of what's happening versus other outlets where it's just people don't have running water. And it's sort of this poverty porn kind of perspective.
Yes. Give me the clickbait things. Yeah.
It's so frustrating. But so thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I had a lot of fun.
Awesome. No, you're very welcome. No, it's great. So we'll throw all that stuff down in the description as well, links to your channels and your social media and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to say to my listeners, check out the Navajo Times. It is a really great media outlet, especially, it's so hard to sift through some of the news you get on the internet, and also it's just hard to sift through, people sharing stuff on social media from so many unreliable outlets. So check out Navajo Times. It's a direct source from the Navajo Nation, and it'll give you way better information. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on again, and just stick around here. I'm going to hit stop, but we'll say goodbye to the listeners for now. So
thank you. Bye.
Thanks for watching the show this week. I just wanted to clarify one thing that I said in the interview. I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan, and I'm terrible. I don't even know the population of my own city. It has actually surpassed 200,000 now. So I think I mentioned 150,000 during the interview. I was going on really old numbers, and I guess I've lived here so long that I forget that we keep growing. So just to clarify that, our community is over 200,000 people just here in the Regina proper area. Anyways, just wanted to make that clarification. Again, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, please follow me on whatever podcast app that you have. There's new episodes every week. Unfortunately, I'm going to be taking a break this next week, so there's going to be a bit of a gap in episodes. We'll be back stronger than ever after that, I promise. So please keep checking the pages. Go to my Facebook page, Instagram, wherever you want to follow me, and I'll be posting things as I go. All right, I think that's it for now. So have a great week. Remember to stay safe, use your masks, wash your hands, do all those things the health officials are telling you. And again, we are all pandemic people.